If you're an author or plan to be one, get excited because this podcast is for you. Book Marketing Mentors is the only podcast dedicated to helping you successfully market and sell your book. If you're ready for empowering conversations with successful marketing mavens, then grab a coffee or tea and listen in to your host, international best-selling author Susan Friedman.
Welcome to Book Marketing Mentors, the weekly podcast where you learn proven strategies, tools, ideas, and tips from the masters. Every week, I introduce you to a marketing master who will share their expertise to help you market and sell more books. Today, my special guest is known as the Business Book Strategist. Cathy Fyock works with thought leaders and professionals who want to write a book as a business growth strategy. Since 2014, she's helped more than 200 professionals become published authors. A National Speaker Association colleague and friend. Cathy, what a pleasure it is to welcome you back to the show. Thank you again for being this week's guest expert and mentor.
Thank you, Susan. It's great to be here.
We had so much fun the last time, and you have so much wisdom that you have to share. It was too much to fill up one episode, so we had to have you back.
I love it. Great.
Cathy, I know that one of your special talents is helping people write books that sell other business. Talk to us more about that. What does that mean exactly?
Well, it means that your book can be a wonderful calling card. And I think we've all heard that before. But specifically, your book can lead to you selling high value coaching, consulting, speaking, other services as well. But you have to write the book the right way. You can't have there be a disconnect between the content of the book and what's in your book and what you do. So you have to show throughout your book the relationship of what you do. And the best way to do that is by sharing client examples. So if you've helped your clients overcome a problem or deal with an issue, then your book should be full of examples of showing you doing just that. So that as your reader is reading your book, they can say, oh my gosh, maybe she can help me with my problem. That's exactly what you want to have happen.
That's fabulous. So adding these case studies or whatever you call them, just examples of what you've done. So the problem solution and being able to show that you have the expertise to solve people's challenges, their issues, their pains, whatever they call them.
Absolutely. Yes. Showing that your clients have had those problems. You've helped them solve it. Here are the fabulous results that have come about after your work. That is huge, hugely important. But another piece that is just as important is the real estate that is prime for you positioning yourself, and that is the about the author.
Ooh, let's talk more about that, because I think that's probably one of the hardest things for an author to write. I know I remember when I was in PR and my first job with the agency, my boss said, write a press release about yourself joining the company. And I was like, okay. It took me a long time to write that press release.
It's hard. And the good news is once you have something written, authors can use it not only for their about the author, but they can use it on their speaker author one sheets. They can use it on their websites. They can use it in countless places. But you're right. Getting it crafted with just the right words is super, super hard. But I've come up with sort of a formula for putting it together. I'd love to share that with you if I could.
Oh my goodness. Anything that's a formula that's going to make this easy for our authors. Cathy, go right ahead.
Yes. Think of your about the author as having three major parts. The first part is the credential about you that is most important to your reader. Now think about that. It's not the thing that you are most proud of. It's not maybe your degree or some certification. It's the credential that makes the most sense for your reader. So you'll need to do a little bit of thinking about that. What is it? Is it just the fact, say that for myself, is it the fact that I am a fellow author? Is that perhaps even more important than I've been a book coach? I don't know. That's something you need to think about. But think about first all of your credentials, but then go through and cross out the ones that your reader doesn't care anything about. Circle the ones or star the ones that, wow, that is a real keeper. That's something you know based on the business that you have been able to book with readers who have become clients. That is a keeper. That's something that's important to them. So that's part one, is a credential. And here's the other big mistake, is you don't want to have a whole laundry list of credentials. 1 or 2 credentials is enough. Don't overwhelm your reader, because what you want to do with your reader is to say, we are colleagues. We can work together. You don't want to create such a gap or chasm between you and your reader that you are inapproachable. You don't want to laden that you're about the author with tons and tons of credentialing and what you've accomplished. You want to make yourself very human. So your most important credential or 2. So that's part 1. The second part is, how do you serve your readers? How do you serve your clients? What problem is it that you solve? And how do you do that? Do you do that through speaking engagements? Do you do workshops? Do you do seminars, keynotes? What is it that you specifically do if you're a speaker? Or if you're not a speaker, if you're a coach? How do you offer your coaching services? Is it one-on-one? Is it group? What is that? What does that look like? How do you serve your readers? And then the third part is, and this is the tricky part, this is the hardest part probably, is to think about a connection point that you can have with your readers. Now, it could be a hobby that you have. It could be something fun that you love to do. It could be a passion. It could also be a value that you possess. But think about what it is that might connect you with your readers. For example, I'll tell you what I've discovered is my value point of connection is I help authors change the world one word at a time. And so many times that's what my authors really value. They want to make the world a better place. That's what I love about the work that I do as a book coach. I'm helping authors make the world a better place. So I almost always include that in my About the Author piece. To kind of summarize, is 3 parts: the credential that's important to your reader, how do you serve your reader client, and how can you connect? What's a point of connection? And it could be, like I say, your value, or it could be a hobby, or it could be the fact that you love your grandchildren or your pets or whatever it might be, but something that helps you connect with your reader. So that's my magic formula.
I love it. I think the first bit, the credentials, what you said, you don't want to overload people with unnecessary information. It reminded me, I hadn't thought about this, but my husband applied for a job and he has a PhD and he put that down. What he didn't realize was that he made it out as if he was an academic when they didn't want somebody who was an academic. They wanted somebody who would be more people oriented, and that didn't come over. Therefore, he didn't get the job. It's really interesting that you say that, because we think, oh, we've got to put our masters or PhDs, all our credentials. I've got this certificate. I'm, licensed in this. They don't care. They don't care.
No. It's so true. So be careful that you don't write your About the Author for you as opposed to your reader.
Exactly. It's really, really important. And then how you serve the reader. I love that last part, the making the connection, your hobbies. I enjoy yoga, or I enjoy kayaking or quilting, or as you said, being with my grandkids. Just saying a couple of things like that, or you enjoy traveling, people can make that connection. Yes.
I learned this, Susan, as a speaker. I started putting into my introduction a couple of fun facts about me. One of the fun facts is that I have gained and lost weight so many times I can't even tell you. But at the time that I wrote this introduction, I had just lost 50 pounds. So I put that in my introduction. I can't tell you how many people came up to me at the end of the presentation and they said, "Oh, I have trouble with my weight too. What's your secret? What have you done?" And I instantly connected with about half of the audience. And it really tickled me that as something just as vulnerable as my weight is an ongoing roller coaster provided this great connection with my audience.
Absolutely. Or something fun. I often say I've been chased by an elephant and I've been rescued by the National Guard, and people like, huh? It's not exactly what you expect somebody to say, but it sort of creates that curiosity, and people want to know, well, how did you do that? Or what happened? So yes.
Yes.
You mentioned mistakes, Cathy, and I know our listeners love to hear about mistakes that authors make, whether they do it deliberately or not, or they don't even, most of the time, obviously, they don't realize that they're doing it. What are some of the common mistakes that you see that we could potentially avoid?
If you haven't written your book yet, just be sure that you're providing lots of those great examples, great stories. I don't think that there is an instance where you can tell too many stories in your books. So while you're writing your book, look for those opportunities. Once you've written the book, I think one of the big mistakes that people make is thinking that they have to sell their book in order to make money on their book. Let me explain. I know several of my authors who have done a gifting campaign immediately following their launch. And there's a lot of people to thank, people who were beta readers or editorial board members or who were on your launch team or what have you. Just recently, one of my authors was thinking about thanking her launch team and those who had helped her. And she ordered some beautiful books. She put a personal note inside of each one. She wrapped it beautifully with colors coordinating with her book cover and so forth, and sent out the books as a thank you. Now, she did it purely as a thank you, but she ended up, I think she's right now at 14 speaking engagements as a result of gifting the book. She is a paid professional speaker. So she is going to be making lots and lots of money on the fact that she gifted those early books. Don't think that you have to sell books in order to make money on your book. It could be that gifting your book is the best strategy.
That's really interesting. My daughter just sent me something that she saw recently at a library, where a library foundation had purchased a certain number of an author's book. They had a whole bookshelf filled with the author's book, and it said, "Take one and pass it on." How's that
I
for
love
an
that.
idea? Isn't that an it's a dynamite idea. It's obviously you've got to find somebody who's going to buy, let's say, 100 books, but to have a library do that and say, "Hey, here, feel free, take it, keep it," and then read it and pass it on to somebody else. I think that's lovely. That was a brand new idea. I was like, that is really good, because libraries now are becoming more and more important to our authors. They're not the old-fashioned libraries that we think about. They're really trying to get with it and get with the times, do novel things, and that was one of them. What other mistakes do you see authors make?
I think that authors sometimes fail to rely on their readers and to engage with their readers. Sometimes we as the author feel like we have to have all the answers or to be positioned as the thought leader or the expert, when really I think we can better serve our readers and position our books more effectively by facilitating the tribe, if you will, of coordinating a group of people that come together to discuss and discover and learn without necessarily having all the answers. So sometimes I'm finding when I am leading webinars or learning programs, I used to think that I had to have all the answers. Instead, I think that authors need to ask the really great questions that position your expertise and create conversation around your expertise.
That's so true. I remember feeling the exact same way. And maybe this is a novice mistake that you feel that you have to have all the answers, where in fact, actually, you don't at all. It's asking the right questions and people sort of giving you those answers. And sometimes, when I'm in a room and somebody asks a question, and I was like, before I answer that, let me see who in the audience would have an answer, or how would you answer that, and let them tell you, because while I'm thinking, what would my answer be? And I can either contradict that, or I can say, yes, that's exactly what I thought. Little tricks of the trade.
Yes. The other thing I was thinking about in terms of big mistakes is your launch is not just a day, or it's not just a week or even a month. Your launch is an ongoing series of activities that you are helping introduce new readers to your book, your thought leadership. So it's a process that takes place over time. It is not a moment in time. And I think to think about it that way and to be thinking about the long game of your book promotions, I think too many authors invest a lot of thinking and a lot of planning in what happens that first day or that first week, and not enough are spending time thinking about what happens in the next 3 months and the next 6 months, because those are the authors that are really going to find that their books will bring them so many benefits.
Oh, that's so true. I get questions often, how long should I keep marketing my book? And then, my answer is, well, how long do you want to keep selling your book?
That's exactly the right question. And there's always lots of ways that you can take your book and the content in that book and repurpose that content in a number of different ways. Just because you have created the book doesn't mean that you still can't generate lots of different content iterations from that book. So you can have a workbook, you can have a manual, you can have the trainer, you can have all sorts of derivative products and services that you can create based on the content from that first book.
Yes, I love this cutting, dicing, and slicing in as many different ways. I created checklists, I created tip sheets, I created training courses, all based on the material in one book.
Yes. So, the two things I've done recently, I just created a workbook that was released the first of the year called My New Book. And I love My New Book because it is really some of the principles in my first book on writing on your mark, from first word to first draft in 6 weeks. But it puts it all in workbook fashion, and it's using all of the exercises that I find to be most helpful when I'm working with new clients. That has become a wonderful tool. I'm going to be speaking for some groups of speakers and authors in the next month, and we're going to be taking the book and giving the book to everybody there, and we'll use it as our workbook for our time together. That's one example. And then the other thing I just created is it's sort of like a little inspirational book. It's something that you can sit on your desk and you can open it up, and each page has some little highlight, some snippet. And actually, these are all pull quotes from On Your Mark that are there to inspire and motivate authors to get their books done. That's a new product that I have developed, again, all from the same content. So don't think that it's one and done with your book. It's a matter of looking for the next possible iteration of that chunk of content.
Oh, what came to me as you said that was I'm visualizing a calendar. You know, how you have those little desk calendars, those blocks, and each day is a different quote.
Yes.
You have to still come up with 365. I don't know if you have that many, but yeah.
But if you do, that's great. But to be thinking about all the different ways. I was just at a meeting of the National Speakers Association in Central Florida, and Barry Banther, who's a past president of NSA, was the speaker. And oh my gosh, he was so wonderful. And he reminded us again that you take your content and you can sell it, promote it, get it out there in so many different forms and fashions. But your book is, I think, the central piece. It's the one document that really has the most gravitas than a speech or an article. Those things are somewhat transitory, where your book is so permanent and so valued by readers. So I'm excited about the notion that once you create this body of knowledge that you put into your book, you can then use it for so many other purposes.
An author who becomes a speaker then is in a situation, let's say, where they want to sell their book from the stage in some way. How could you do that so it doesn't say, oh, I've got my books for sale at the back of the room. Go get one, go buy one.
Yes. Well, I have some great tips for this. First of all, if you can pre-sell books to the meeting planner, I love it when you can say something like, well, would it make sense for everyone in the audience to have a copy of the book so it would reinforce the learning and the learning would go on well beyond my presentation? I love that. So having an opportunity to position pre-sales of the book, bulk sales of the book, that's number one. But let's say they've said, no, just you can have a table at the back of the room. First of all, in your introduction, ask your introducer to mention that you have the book table. That way it won't seem so salesy coming from you. It will come from your introducer. And then what I always do is bring an extra copy of my book for my introducer so that they can even hold it up and say, Cathy gave me this book and she's going to be selling it at the back of the room. So she hopes you'll join her there or wherever the book sale might be. The other thing is be sure you have a copy of your book and you hold it and you talk about your book. You can just say something that's in your book. You don't have to be selling your book to be selling your book, if you see what I mean. So what I like to do is say, I have a wonderful checklist in my book on page 62. And let me just read a couple of the things from that checklist on page 62. And then you read a couple of those things and people are saying, oh my gosh, if that checklist is in the book, I must go back and get a copy because I need that checklist. Holding the book, reading from the book, having the title of your presentation be the same as the title of your book. That way everybody can see, oh, well, I loved what she talked about. I want more of that. I want to go more in depth. I want to get this book. So having the book be the same title as your presentation or a derivative of your book title be the title of your presentation. Those are all little tiny things that you can do that absolutely will sell books.
Yes. And even, somebody volunteers to do something, you introduce them or, you have them as part of your talk, and then you can give them a copy of the book for volunteering or helping you with something. So yes, that's also a cute way of somebody having one copy and somebody saying, oh, I want one too.
Yes. But here's a mistake, Susan, that I just saw a speaker make. She was talking about her book and she was actually rewarding someone who'd volunteered to give they raised their hand and gave some information. And she gave them a copy of her book, but she just said, and so here's a copy of my book. Thank you. And she didn't hold it up. She didn't say, and the title of my book is the speaker author. So there could have been some things that she could have done as she's giving that book away just little things that she can do that have people say, oh, that's what it looks like as she's holding it up. That's the name of it. I heard her say it clearly and distinctly. That's another thing I think authors often do. We say the titles of our books far too quickly so that those people who are trying to catch it can't quite get it. Say it slowly and clearly so that listeners can hear what you're saying and can get their copy.
Yeah, sometimes I feel that authors are almost like embarrassed by their own book. Yes, they're just, oh, well, here's my book. And that actually lowers the value of not only the book, but really it's the information that's inside the book that is so important. It's not the book. I mean, the book is just the vehicle. It's just what's inside it. Like you said, I've got this checklist on page 62 that, if you're interested in this, you should refer to it.
Absolutely.
Cathy, I know listeners want to know how they can get in touch with you, find out more. I know you've got a retreat coming up shortly. Talk to us more about all these different things.
Well, you can check out all the details of all my services, retreats, and so forth at my website. That's cathyfyock.com. So if you can remember my name, you can remember how to find me. So cathyfyock.com. But I am having a writing retreat coming up in October, the 13th, 14th, and 15th, right outside of Louisville, Kentucky. It is a beautiful retreat center. It will be amazing writing. I have done writing retreats before, and I have had clients who came without a book title and left with the first draft of their manuscript. Now, I have to say that is not common, but that is possible. We have all sorts of ways to get you ready to really make the best use of your time. So if you're finding it's hard to get your book written in the course of being busy with everything else, then coming to a writing retreat can be a great way to do that. Come visit my website at cathyfyock.com. Look under services and retreat, and you'll get all the information, and you can even register online.
Perfect. I will put that link in the show notes so that people know how to spell it too, because I know you and I went through, how do you exactly pronounce it? Because yes.
I have a tricky name, that's for sure.
Friedman isn't much easier, especially as it's spelled the German way, and it looks like Friedman, and it's got two N's. Cathy, if you were to leave our listeners with a golden nugget, what would that be?
First, let me just say, anyone who would like to have a strategy session with me, any listener of this program, feel free to reach out to me at cathyfyock.com. Just send me an email, cathy@cathyfyock.com. But let me just say this. I think that a book is the most powerful tool you can have in your arsenal of tools to help grow your business. If you are thinking about a book, I really want to encourage you to write your book. Only you can write your book. So make your mark.
Yes, without any shadow of a doubt. And even if you've got one book, doesn't mean you have to stop there. In fact, people, if they like you enough, because they like your material, they want more. Be prepared. If you've got one book, how about a second or a third, or I don't know, the sky's the limit. So yes, Cathy's a great person to help you with that. Listeners, I will put all that information, her email and her website in the show notes so that you can check Cathy out. It's been an absolute pleasure having you with us. Thank you. You delivered like I knew you would. Great stuff. And thank you all for taking time out of your precious day to listen to this interview. And I sincerely hope that it sparks some ideas you can use to sell more books. Here's wishing you much book and author marketing success.
The time is now to take action and finally build your book-selling empire. And the great news is that Susan is here to help you. Visit bookmarketingmentors.com and sign up for a free 15-minute book marketing strategy session with Susan. She'll help you discover your first steps to marketing and selling your book. Only those who take action are rewarded, so visit bookmarketingmentors.com, and we'll see you again next week.